time to get started. Melanie, how you doing today?
I'm great, Doug. How about you?
I am all right, and I am excited about today's program. So I want to first of all thank everyone who's joining us. We are excited to have you here for today's web event, which is making the journey from Salesforce to HubSpot in a B2B enterprise. I'm Doug Wendt. I'm the President and Chief Growth Officer here at Wendt Partners. We are a HubSpot elite partner based in New York City and serving clients all around the world. And I am honored to be joined by Melanie Crow. Melanie is the Senior Vice President, of Sales Enablement at Inova Payroll, which used to be just in Nashville, but now you all are pretty much becoming an everywhere in the world kind of a company. So we are excited to be here. Melanie and her team have worked with us for, the last year plus on your journey from Salesforce to HubSpot. And so I want to first of all welcome you, Melanie, to today's program. A couple of quick notes for the attendees. If you have a question, you can go ahead and just hit the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen and ask it. If we have a chance to discuss it during the dialogue, we'll go ahead and address it. If not, we'll let you know that we'll come back to it later. We'll also set aside time for Q&A in the end. In addition, the webinar is strictly scheduled for door-to-door, 12 to 1 Eastern. We'll make sure to end on time. And we will also make sure everyone has a recording of today's webinar if you want to share it with anyone else in your organization. So again, I think it's really exciting, and I want to thank you, Melanie, for joining us to talk about this question of the journey from Salesforce to HubSpot for your sales team. So again, Melanie, welcome. Melanie, tell us a little bit about your career and your journey through CRM. We were talking a little bit about that before the webinar started.
Sure, Doug. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you in any way that we can. And I have actually been in sales now since 1985. And the very first, quote, CRM that we used, and Doug, I left this one off the list, was ACT, okay?
For DOS, right?
Exactly.
Yes, we have the same thing. Go.
Yes.
I'm going to pull up a screenshot just for fun. Go for it.
Okay. And then over the course of my 30-year involvement with sales, I was just kind of looking at it, and this is actually the 7th. There you go.
This is where we started.
Yep, I've seen a couple like that.
We're still putting names, phone numbers, contacts, and titles into a piece of software, aren't we?
Yep, we are. Over my 30 years, I've used 7 different CRMs. Was it a pain? Absolutely. There's, our CEO has a saying, because we are in, the HCM and payroll services world, that folks would rather have a root canal than to go through a payroll conversion. And you don't get them. Yes. You don't buy root canals just because they're on sale.
Oh my gosh. We're trying to make this more like LASIK, but it does tend to be on the root canal end of the spectrum.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So, we've used, or I have SalesLogix, Clientele, Sugar CRM, Microsoft, Salesforce, and now HubSpot. So hopefully, as the saying goes, you just get better with time, I guess.
Oh, I love it. Yes. Well, we're excited to have you helping us to make really fine wine with HubSpot. So I appreciate that analogy.
Very good.
Melanie, tell us a little bit about Inova, a little bit about the business story of the company. I know Inova has just grown by leaps and bounds. You're in a highly competitive industry with a lot of gigantic conglomerates, kind of sweeping in and trying to take market share. Tell us a little bit about the world of Inova Payroll.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, one thing, Doug, about the payroll industry, folks think that they can get out of it, but you never get out of it. It keeps sucking you back in.
It's the Hotel California career path.
It is. So this is our CEO's second venture with successful payroll companies. The first venture was a company called Paymax, which was acquired in 2005 by a company called CompuPay. And then Benefit Mall acquired CompuPay. So we had a lot of clients. We were known for our service in taking care of our customers, and we still are. But one of the things was there was a void in the world of payroll with service. You know, you've got the smaller regional guys that typically do provide some good service, and they're tough to compete against sometimes. But what we did is we started Inova 11 years ago, and we started out, I think we had like maybe 8 people in one office, which was our corporate office in Nashville.
Wow.
So fast forward through growth, and we have done some acquisitions. We have a very lively acquisition funnel and pipeline. And through acquisitions and growth, we have grown to 9 offices throughout the country, and 270 employees. And we have somewhere around 5,500 different unique companies that we process for. So, it's fun though, because we feel like our solutions help people. And in today, where it's so hard to get people and have them on staff, anything you can do to help them is that great. One of the things that we're really proud of too is our Net Promoter Score is in the like mid 60s, where most of our competitors is down in the 30s. And there's even one, the big guy, I won't say the name, that is actually down negative, because it goes from a negative 100 to a positive 100. So we're really proud of our position, and that speaks volumes for our service and support, because our customers love us and we love them.
And you brought up a couple of points that got me thinking. I mean, payroll is, like you said, changing payroll providers is like getting a root canal. So it's a very sticky service. People will tolerate a lot of mediocrity before they will finally change. On the other hand, if the pain threshold is that high and you come in with a better solution that they feel confident will make that pain go away, then they're going to make the change. That's quite a lift for your sales team, right? Yes. I mean, typically you're talking to companies probably been with their current provider for 2, 3, 5, maybe 10 years, and you're asking them to change a piece of the plumbing that keeps the machine moving every day.
Exactly. And, our philosophy is payroll is personal and immediate. We don't want to mess with anybody's paycheck or their family, but if you get their paycheck, you automatically have their family. Because a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck today.
Yes.
Which they don't have to now with the early wage access programs, but they can draw some of their money, but it's still very important and highly visible. Everybody in the company is affected when the payroll's not right.
So tell us a little bit about how you've structured your sales organization. They've got a heavy lift. They've got to find new customers, to engage those prospects, to convince them that this is a change worth making. There's a lot of work involved in getting just one new account. Tell us a little bit about how that sales team is deployed, and then we'll use that as a lead into the discussion about how we make sure that the CRM is helping them, not hindering them.
Sure. We have, even though we have less than 20 sales reps, we are very complex as far as the way we set up and operate. And Doug, I know your team knows that more than anybody else. But we have like 2 payroll HCM, and that's human capital management sales team. One deals with clients that are under 100. The other deals with, national enterprise type accounts. And we also, in addition to that, we have a plus service rep, which plus services to us are things that you can wrap around payroll, like the early wage access, like the 401ks, those kinds of things. And then we have our own benefits brokerage, which has their sales team. And we also have an HR outsourcing division, which has their sales team. So we try to put all that together, and as we've migrated and acquired organizations, we just we have to add them and figure out the differences and that whole thing. But we're going to continue to grow.
Absolutely. And why do you see the market? Why is there so much opportunity ripe for consolidation, for expansion? In a nutshell, like, where is the payroll and HCM services industry headed in your mind?
Well, it's really interesting because you see a lot of business owners actually selling and trying to get out of the business. What we're seeing in payroll is it's very difficult for some of the smaller payroll service bureaus like Inova,
right,
to actually make it. Finding staff, keeping staff, I mean, that has been a hit for everybody in the last couple of years. And it's particularly been painful in the payroll industry because of the knowledge set that the people have to have,
right,
that are supporting it. And so we definitely are going to continue to go through that. But with that org structure, we've got sales reps throughout the country. We cover all of the United States. So we've got sales reps throughout the country.
Wow.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to point out is you're doing an enormous amount with what is actually a very small sales team relative to the market that you're pursuing and the segments that you're in, which is fascinating. We'll dig more into that in a few moments, I'm sure. I want to set the stage for our discussion of the fact that you came from Salesforce to HubSpot, and I was thinking about this. I did a little research earlier. So of course, this is Act for DOS, right? This is the first platform you and I both started with. Right. This is obviously a dinosaur, right? I don't think anyone can look at that screen and say that's not a dinosaur. So by the way, this is Salesforce.com. This is actually from Salesforce's website. I almost want to thank them for reminding us that they too are a dinosaur. This is like Windows 1.0 practically level territory. I guess maybe 3.0 if I want to be technically accurate. But this is ancient technology. This is back when, the browser wars were going on, and the whole idea of the internet being a platform for enterprise software was brand new. In fact, a lot of people don't know the original tagline of Salesforce.com as a company was, and the icon for it was a big red circle with a slash through it, and it said the end of software. So this is a company that really came in and said, like, we're going to attack, and we're going to attack hard, which they do to this day. It's built into their DNA, but like, let's just absorb the history lesson here. This would be right, very well situated next to a Blockbuster store. Okay. That's the world of technological advancement we're talking about. And yet, to their credit, they've been the industry standard for years. They've got this dinosaur product that's been the industry standard for years. But people, it's not maybe as sticky as payroll systems and technology, but it's pretty close. As this is not an easy journey, no matter what system you come from and go to. Tell us a little bit about your experience with Salesforce, the technology, the company, and then we'll dig into what the factors were that drove you to look at a change.
Sure. We started out with Salesforce for the sales CRM. And we used HubSpot for our marketing hub. And we had the interaction or file movement between Salesforce and I lost my train of thought.
Salesforce and HubSpot, right?
And
Sales
HubSpot,
and marketing.
Yep.
You got it.
Yep. And, it's, we have been on it. Our CEO is a avid fan of Salesforce. He's used it pretty much, in every organization that he's been a part of. So it was a really, really difficult move to make. because you've got the folks that like it, but they're not in it using it. So, it's the users that make the difference. So we had issues with not being able to get reports. If you wanted anything, it was a third-party add-on. I can't even imagine trying to do very many integrations.
Mm-hmm.
We are a HubSpot user now. We changed over last September with the help of Wendt partners. We could not have made it without your help, Doug, but we definitely couldn't in as quick as we did it.
Mm-hmm.
We had experienced severe support issues, not being able to speak to US bound support. We were definitely dealing with overseas, which caused two things: very hard to understand, and there was a delay in your support because of the time difference.
So issue resolution would cycle a day or two before it went into any active response. Yep.
Correct. And we didn't have like you do on HubSpot, where you have the chat box where you can actually talk to HubSpot support, get answers. Of course, there wasn't much on Salesforce like an academy. And I would tell you one of the things, Doug, that our company really got weary of is we would train somebody and certify them as a Salesforce administrator. And because they were part of this Salesforce users group, as soon as we did that, somebody else would come in and hire them away. And that certification takes a long time. We were happy for the employees, but not happy for us. So,
right.
Yeah. And I don't sense that would happen in the HubSpot ecosystem. I just don't.
Well, and you bring up another really good point, and I'm going to lean into this a little bit. There's sort of a double-edged sword, I think, of market perception about HubSpot. For years, HubSpot has said our product is easy enough to use and configure that you don't need an admin, compared to the Salesforce admin. On the other hand, our product today is extremely complex and powerful. So how do you reconcile those? My answer, and I just want to kind of pressure test this with you, I'm curious to get your take. If you hire a Salesforce admin, what they're primarily doing is administering the machine, because administering Salesforce, thus the term Salesforce admin, will take up 85%, 90% of your day. It's not enhancing it. It's not optimizing it. It's not making it better. It's just keeping the plumbing working. Hey, this add-on broke. This connector didn't work correctly. The data seems to be off here. Why? What's going on with, how the API is doing this other thing? I find when I talk to Salesforce admins, they're busy and there aren't enough of them, but that's because the amount of work it takes to put the plumbing together and keep it from leaking is extraordinary. So I always tell clients, there's certainly an opportunity to add a full-time person on your team, but I wouldn't call them an admin. I'd call them a HubSpot optimizer, because really, if HubSpot is properly configured, they should spend most of their time improving your system, taking an agile approach, constantly making it better. And we both know that just since you started becoming a HubSpot customer, your own use case has changed more times than I could count. That's not unique to you. That's not a negative thing. That's a positive thing. The change in what's happening in industry, whether it's through acquisition, you guys are bringing in new companies into the fold. In our case, our sales process has changed more in the last 18 months than it did in the previous 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to constantly rethink, how do we want to manage our pipelines? How do we want to look at our business? We did an experiment ourselves in our own hub where we separated existing account from new account into two separate pipelines. Then we realized we were always psychologically giving the new account pipeline precedence. So we merged it back into a single view and used custom object and custom field associations. These are things that there's no right or wrong. You don't learn it till you try it. You can't try it if your person is busy being an administrator instead of an optimizer.
That's correct. That's very true. And when you have a sales organization that is distributed throughout the country, that's more critical that the CRM runs smoothly and eliminates as much work and time as it can. And one of the things that to me is just totally amazing on HubSpot, you can make calls from in there. You can just click to call and it records them. So, it's great if you need to go back and review what was said. What are you supposed to do next? It allows you to focus on your conversation and not on taking notes.
You're bringing up something else that I want to run by you. I find that people, they often forget when they've been on Salesforce that they're not actually using Salesforce. They're using Salesforce and 12 other products that add functionality or better user experience or more sales enablement to Salesforce. And they take that wrapped up package of Salesforce and the 12 other things, and then they come over and say, can HubSpot do all this? And I think there are two important answers. First of all, you need to go back and look at what Salesforce is really doing for you, because it's 1/13 of that package. The other piece is, by and large, the answer with HubSpot is yes. It actually can do most of those things, if not all of them, natively in many cases, not all. And we'll talk about that later in the discussion. But, you talked about, I know before we went live, you talked about the sales enablement, the calling, the sequence tools, the automations. We talked a little bit about playbooks. Like, these are things that you previously had to do with outside tools, if at all. Tell us a little bit about your experience considering HubSpot for your CRM. What's your experience been using HubSpot as your CRM?
Well, I would say, when the sales folks aren't beating your door down, it means that what they've got is working for them. We don't hear much back from the sales folks about how do you do this, how do you do that. It's mapped out very well, and I would tell you we have a fantastic marketing team. Without them, I would hate to even think about it without those guys and gals. We have, and we also track, just so you know, our referral partners also within HubSpot. And we've got playbooks, all of our literature and documents and sales proposals and anything that a sales rep would need access to is resident within HubSpot,
right?
Which is really great, because our goal is to make HubSpot the go-to place.
Right.
And we've done quite a few integrations in this first year, as Doug, and it's really exciting to us to be able to have that ability to get these integrations done, and they don't cost an arm and a leg.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about you. We did the Salesforce migration. Then you've acquired a couple of other companies. What were the other platforms that got folded in, if you don't mind my asking?
Sure. One was with the most users was Zoho. The other, surprisingly enough, and it's a good surprise, was another HubSpot instance. So that within itself, to be able to get that data migrated, in the reps that were using, like the Zoho, they just stepped right into HubSpot. So yeah, we've done that. Who knows what we're going to get next? So, but whatever we get, we're confident that we can do it.
And in terms of what you're trying to frame for your sales users, I think what you said earlier was fascinating. The phrase that came to mind was "no GNUs is good GNUs," with Gary GNU. Like, if they're busy doing their job and you're getting the reports and the analytics you want, and things are humming, that is absolutely right, a sign of success. And I'm really thrilled to hear that. I think it's really key for our overall audience to think about the fact that a lot of you are probably going to be experiencing more and more M&A activity in the coming years, or observing it. And I think HubSpot, it's an important sort of pin to note that HubSpot is a very acquisition-friendly, scalable platform. And there's always work involved. Okay. But
Always.
we're able to support it technically and we're able to map it precisely. I want to dig in a little bit now. I don't want everyone to think it's going to be all roses and no thorns. That wouldn't be fun. So let's talk about some of the pinch points. One of them is data quality and data structure, coming from these migrated systems. What are some of the lessons that you've learned about, how is a company name not the same as a company name? Like those kinds of things. Just tell us a few of the moments.
One of the things that was just, it was such a duh moment is the best I can put it. When we were migrating the data from Zoho, we had a lot of accounts come in unassigned. Mm-hmm. And you don't want unassigned companies or deals or contacts. So we worked with the team and found out that something as simple as one of the reps had a last name change. Mm-hmm. So that rep existed 2 times in the Zoho.
Right.
Okay. So we couldn't assign the ones that were not set up in HubSpot because we've got the current name, but we didn't have anything. So,
which were actually 2 different users, technically speaking, in the other system.
Exactly. So HubSpot couldn't assign it because we didn't have 2 users for that person in HubSpot. So we've had that. I think the hardest part is breaking old habits because like I said, our marketing team used HubSpot for all those 11 years to do the things that they do. But when you add the sales hub to it, it becomes a different animal, meaning, if you're just doing your marketing out of it, you don't have to have an exact match. You can upload a list with email addresses and send your communication. You can't do that when you're working with it with the sales team. Because, and the biggest surprise, I guess, that came to us was creating the duplicates if there isn't an exact match. And, it's something like Wendt partners. If you have Wendt capitalized and what you're bringing in is not capitalized, or has got different spacing, then that's a duplicate coming in.
Right. So, and then having those rules, right, and defining what that looks like. Exactly.
And that's been a pretty painful process for us across the board. But, we are excited about the programs that you're rolling out. And I know we'll talk at those a little bit. So, the issue is, some people don't have a domain. It's like, what do you do with those Gmail type?
Whenever we deal with clients who serve small businesses as a significant part of their market, we have an interesting challenge, which is, at least in the native tool set, right, it's domain-based deduplication. And you're correct, like, you can't dedupe Gmail addresses. And yet, 20% of all American businesses still run without a standard business domain tied to their email. So you're absolutely correct. We also have other clients with other situations where this gets interesting. We have a healthcare client that was trying to figure out what their dedupe strategy should be around hospital systems. Well, similar to your industry, hospitals are acquiring and relabeling and merging faster than you could shake a stick. And it's not as easy as just saying, everything that's under Mount Sinai Health System is Mount Sinai Health System. Because Mount Sinai Physician Partners is a separate company. Mount Sinai Queens is a division of Mount Sinai Main Hospital, and so we had to have a lot of discussions about these things. I really want to double down on, I think, an important point I want everyone to hear, which is the number one thing that's going to trip you up whenever you do a migration isn't the actual migration. It is the inconsistent practices, the weak controls, and the poor data quality in your legacy system. Changing systems, I can buy the world's most expensive range, right? First class range for my home. It's going to be an amazing pie, but I got to put good ingredients in the pie. Otherwise, it's going to come out as a perfectly baked, inedible result. And we spend a lot of time on that. I think you keyed into that, Melanie.
And with each migration, we get smarter and smarter on our side.
Right.
Of being able to go, I think this might be an issue. Let's just double check it. With the team that was using the source system. And then we come back to you guys and say, here's this. What's the best way to map that? Or do we need to even bring it over? Because we all know when you change systems, you've got different fields and properties and objects and all that good stuff that the source system doesn't have. So you had to figure out what to do with it, which, I do think we've gotten better on our sides since the first one.
Oh, I think you're leagues in a better place than you were when you started the journey because of the fact that you've been learning more and more about the different use case scenarios that are not easy to find proactively, but then when they pop up, you go, oh, now I see. An example that I'm thinking about, I think most of your acquisitions have not been in contiguous or overlapping geography, but imagine if you acquired another firm in the Nashville region, their salespeople might yesterday have been selling to the same people that are your customers today or your prospects today. So how do you dedupe the deals, right? Like how do you, and this really gets to a point, which also I want to acknowledge a question that got popped up, which is, would love to hear best practices regarding transferring from Salesforce to HubSpot. My answer is do two things regardless of what system you come from, okay? And that is, number one, really think through and map your business processes. And number two, look at the data in your database and seriously put that through an acid test to determine the quality and consistency of that data. We had a client who we did a migration with exactly the data that they gave to us. And they said, these deals aren't connected to any companies or contacts. Lo and behold, in their old system, they had never required those linkages to be made, and they had not given us, they had approved the single object migration. So, you often don't realize what you've missed in the process of preparing. So one thing we're really leaning into is more and more and more preparation. And yes, that goes to some of the services we'll talk about in a minute. One other thing I want to talk a little bit about. We've also been on an interesting journey with PandaDoc. Yes. I know you were with a different system before. Tell us a little bit about that business process, how complex and intricate that is, and then let's dig into this piece.
Okay. All right. Yes, we basically, I think, have dubbed PandaDoc as the project that we thought would never come to an end, yes. which it has. I mean, the work between Wendt partners and the PandaDoc folks, and even the HubSpot folks has been phenomenal. And one would say, well, why is that so hard? Well, again, if you remember, I said earlier, we want HubSpot to be the go-to. I don't want them to have to go to PandaDoc.
Right.
And what we do is we have an e-signing process for new customers to get the paperwork that we need. And what we have been working on is to get all of our documents over in PandaDoc so that with attributes in HubSpot, so that when a sales rep needs to send the paperwork, they send it right out from the deal in HubSpot. And it is slick. It is great. It helps streamline that process for your sales reps. So it's been a while coming. It's been a little bumpy, but and that's because we do things a little differently. We need to, like if we have 5 documents we want to send, they need to be bundled. Right. We don't want to send 5 different emails. Right. And that has been accomplished. So, we are ready to turn the other one off. We will be rolling out the PandaDoc to the sales team in the next few weeks. But yeah, PandaDoc was a little bit of a struggle, but we're very pleased with the outcome. Very pleased. The other e-sign, It was archaic. It couldn't integrate. It had
It
no,
was an island, right?
yeah. And I believe it had no API capabilities from what I remember, which is unheard of today, really.
But you bring up a couple of really interesting points. First of all, whenever we do something like this, even if it's just utilizing standard tools, there's not necessarily one perfect use case that meets everyone's needs. I remember in this project, we went back and forth along with you on what is the best way to address this. And one approach was to primarily build automation in HubSpot and then trigger an action in PandaDoc, but using the standard connector capabilities limited our ability to do things such as advanced bundling. So then we started thinking about a different approach. We went in a very bespoke custom approach. The challenge there wasn't enough workflow flexibility for a couple of additional usage scenarios in your process. Because like you said, it's not one size fits all. It depends on the case. And so we had to start mapping out correctly the business criteria. And not all that was even understood on day one. Like, again, and this will bring us right into the discussion of what we're doing next together, which I'm really excited about. The more we map the process, the more we can configure the technology. But what I really appreciate is you understand that this is a journey. Yes, we want to get to certain stations on time. For the most part, we've done that. But anybody who tells you that everything is figured out on day one is not being honest, because the reality is your business continues to shape and evolve, and we're trying to find the best way to marry the technology with it. And by the way, another thing that was interesting in this case is in the final version of this, we're actually using functionality in HubSpot that wasn't available a year ago. So that's another thing that's happened. The amount of development that's gone into the HubSpot platform. If I rolled back the clock a year ago, HubSpot's always been aggressive in product development. But I used to get a significant product release announcement maybe once every 2 weeks. Now I've had to turn the notifications off because we're talking not tweaks, serious product updates and enhancements. Enterprise class new capabilities are coming multiple times a week, often almost one a day. So we're in a world of evolution of capability. And I think your experience, and we're both a HubSpot partner and a PandaDoc partner. We had top people at both firms working on this along with our team, but we got to the best use case scenario. And now that's going to scale, which is
absolutely.
really, really exciting. Let's talk about the conversations we've had over the last few weeks where we started thinking about the bigger picture here. You started with HubSpot Marketing Hub. That led to a discussion about we should look at moving off Salesforce into HubSpot Sales Hub. Okay. Now let's take a look at that. We were talking about HCM software. We're talking about other moving parts of the organization. And that led us to the project that we're starting on together in the next week or so. Tell us a little bit about how that conversation sort of evolved for you.
Well, literally the first 9 to 12 months are really just migrating your data, looking at it, massaging it, figuring out, hey, this is not quite working. Let's do this. But you get to the point where it's like, okay, we have done what we feel we can do. Now we need some professional help. And the professional help is setting, and I'll let you talk about the service, but
sure,
we're excited because it is going to give us a design and a roadmap to follow, which nobody deviates from that unless there's a good reason, but it makes everything consistent. And we're going to look at our processes and say, okay, marketing team needs this information and be able to put these reports out. Sales needs this, and our business development group needs this, and a benefits group might need this. So, we are now what I would call fine tuning the system and getting it into a sleek racing machine.
You're absolutely correct. And I like that analogy. And I'm going to take that a step further because one of the things we need to do is define and design the track, right? And so I'm going to share screen. I'm going to pop a little something here. So where we've really been finding in our practice at Wendt Partners that what clients are asking for and needing even more of is what I would call strategic IT consulting around their HubSpot implementation. I think yours is a perfect example. If we roll back the clock 5 years, the typical HubSpot customer started with Marketing Hub, and then started to expand their use case. Now the typical HubSpot customer is 2 or 3 hubs. It is now basically sitting alongside ERP as one of their 2 mission critical business systems. Okay. Mission critical means the data and the process that HubSpot is touching is necessary to the day-to-day successful functioning of the enterprise. Historically, that wasn't true. Now that is true. And historically, by the way, it wasn't even true for CRM software, because in the old days, CRM sat on its own, disconnected, and you know what? Whether anyone used it or not, didn't really move the needle, to be blunt. Okay. That's not the world anymore. Now that we are automating and engaging and running processes, automatically scoring and analyzing opportunity and building pipelines and converting to deals, and the deals converting to engagements, and all of that happening. Now, strategic CRM and strategic ERP are your 2 pillar platforms for your company. And in recognizing that, you've been a very generous client in allowing us to start kind of rolling back and rethinking the beginning, if you will. So we started our partnership in an iterative manner, focused on the implementation and the roll off of Salesforce to HubSpot, which we've done. But what we realize now in some of our most recent conversations is it's time to design your enterprise architecture. And so here at our firm, we're calling that portal system design. So we're literally having business analysts and technical consultants look at the client's overall IT infrastructure, including systems that may never even actually touch HubSpot, but they are indirect participants in the data and process flow that HubSpot is the centerpiece of. And we're writing that out and we're literally charting it, okay, so that we have that roadmap. And then for the technical work, we're doing more and more portal technology planning, which is to very precisely build those technical requirements out. So what's interesting here is more and more clients are saying, you know, we don't want to just go ready, fire, aim. We want to have a plan to make the HubSpot migration and the transition successful. And boy, oh boy, if it isn't true, it is always true. An ounce of planning is worth a pound of cure. So the more we're able to plan and do it quickly and efficiently, but in great detail, the more successful we're going to be. The last piece that you were talking about is portal optimization partnership. You've chosen to partner with us to have that portal optimizer instead of portal admin or CRM. By the way, for those of you who are wondering, the term portal is HubSpot's term for an account, so it's interchangeable. But you know, instead of having a CRM admin, we are going to continue to serve as your CRM optimizer. And I'm really excited to have that as a dedicated part of our partnership. So I think we're at an interesting point here where you've chosen to say, we now need to bake HubSpot as the centerpiece of our enterprise IT architecture, build a roadmap for that, and we're ready to move forward on the journey of continued system optimization of our core stack and of our core HubSpot build so that it continues to get better, stronger, more efficient over time.
Yeah, and Doug, myself and our chief growth partner, Kathy Palmer, we are just ecstatic about these programs because it's going to mean so much to us to be able to define what we need and then have someone come back and say, here's what we need to accomplish this for sales, for marketing, for business development, because everybody's got their own ideas and they use different pieces of the system.
Right.
So, you know, when you got somebody that's got that overall look at everything that's going on, it's great. I feel like Christmas has already come. And I would have to say,
nice. Very generous. Yes,
you guys did an amazing job. If you recall, I know you do, on our migration from Salesforce to HubSpot. We did that in like 2 or 3 weeks. And we did that because it was at the end of our Salesforce term
Contract, right?
and we could not get even another month or two extension to be able to spend more time on it. So the job you guys did was amazing in such a short period of time.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a follow-up question to that, since we did have that other question, what are lessons learned or best practices about your experience migrating from Salesforce to HubSpot? What are one or two things that, if somebody else said, look, we're on the same path, we're looking to make the change, what did you learn that we should keep aware of or no?
Well, first of all, you need to have your needs at least identified.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have to. Then, you've as you go through that migration, one of the things that we learned during that, because we were new users, all of our users were set up as super admins.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no way. I mean, there are some that need that and some that don't. But everybody was, so we started working on permission sets.
Mm-hmm.
And I would urge you to initially look at each user in the system and find out what is it that they do and what do they need, because that will help with those things as far as permissions. It will also help with the data migration and the structure.
Yes.
We've got properties and objects that we've added in the system that really do nothing but track like partner referrals, because that's an important part of our business. So I would say, especially if you're on Salesforce, you probably need to start planning at least 6 months before your contract term is up.
I think that's a good number. I think that's right on the money. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
It's possible to move fast, but if you move fast, then what you have to do is take what you got. And in your example, you're right. The user permissioning protocols, all those things, they weren't structured in any strategic manner in Salesforce. So when we come over and we're just replicating what we've got, it's going to come over with warts and all. And you bring up another interesting thought, which is a lot of what people are doing in HubSpot, they really have never done before. Even if that functionality was available in Salesforce, chances are they never really used it. And we find, and I want to address the question that was asked. We find a lot of times when we go into a client Salesforce portal or Salesforce account, they're not even sure what objects, reports, record types, or fields are important to their business process today and which are not. And oftentimes there are a lot of duplicate objects and duplicate fields, and because they were added by different departments or different divisions at different times. If you don't harmonize that stuff, again, garbage in, garbage out, okay? Or in this case, it's the opposite. Whatever you take out is what you're putting in. We can't mysteriously fix bad data or a business process, which is why, to your point, number one, you need to think a lot about that. And number two, to our previous conversation topic, that's why we've really focused on developing that service, because now we can literally spend, 6-8 weeks building that with you, and then that becomes the decision support tool for the migration to be smooth.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I'll mention on the whole Salesforce to HubSpot is, and this is true with any system, but I think Salesforce is a perfect example. I want to make sure I'm clear about something. Okay. As you know, Melanie, HubSpot has a policy, a corporate commitment that no front-end functionality will ever be acquired. 100% of the product is built and managed on a single database platform, on a single code base by a single team, the HubSpot team, full stop. Salesforce has acquired 71 companies since 1999, okay, when it was founded. And most of those have been label slap acquisitions. We still have customers coming to us leaving Pardot, which is a Salesforce company, and it's been a Salesforce company in the marketing automation space for the better part of a decade, because they find out the integration HubSpot has with Salesforce is better than the one that Salesforce has with Salesforce. In this case, Pardot Salesforce. The reason this is important is oftentimes customers don't even realize what all they're actually relying on. And some of these add-on products create non-standard custom objects in the Salesforce database. And what I mean non-standard, what I mean is they're really cheating the database. So when we set up any kind of a synchronization, guess what? They don't show up in the integration toolkit because they were built outside of the proper API protocol. There's so much duct tape and baling wire going on in the Salesforce ecosystem. You know, I have this conversation 20 times a week. What edition of Salesforce? List all the modules and functions and third-party add-ins. I can't remember the last time somebody had that information at the ready. Usually it begins like a huge process of, Frank, are we still using that thing? Janine, what about this thing? That's what I'm talking about. People don't even know what it is that it is the thing that they're trying to migrate off. They just know it's a huge mess.
Yeah. And lo and behold, that it breaks.
Yes. And lo and behold, that it breaks. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. I read something, I think it was on HubSpot site, that I liked the way it was put. A system that's crafted and not cobbled. And, you know, the solutions that we provide clients are also single database, one place for truth. And so when you got something like HubSpot that can do so many things within its own native modes.
Right.
I mean, you've got to make use of those things. You just have to.
You know, I'm going to key into that for a second. One of the things that I find very interesting in the whole sort of head-to-head debate is people will take the laundry list of functions that is in Salesforce, 70% of which they're not actively using, and they will ask to see it in HubSpot. And HubSpot can do almost all of it natively. Remember, Salesforce wasn't doing it natively. It's just that people have forgotten all the other subscriptions and products they've added to their stack. I can't remember the last customer I talked to that just had Salesforce. That doesn't exist. Okay.
Right.
And so then they're looking at HubSpot, and I'm trying to make 2 points that it really takes time, I think, for a lot of them to absorb. Number one, I'm showing you what just is done in HubSpot. No other tools required. If we're doing 85% to 93% in HubSpot natively of what you're used to seeing in Salesforce, that means we're actually doing 200% of what Salesforce can do natively. Okay. Because, for example, we had someone talking about the field service module in Salesforce. I'm like, that's another product. That's not actually native Salesforce functionality. They just slapped a label on it. And by the way, we integrate with a number of field service platforms so we can support your use case. Oh, right. And number two, let's get back to the point of this conversation. At the end of the day, what are we trying to do? Sell more and create more happy customers by doing a better job selling efficiently, upselling, cross-selling, and ensuring that those NPS scores stay high. How do you feel that HubSpot has helped you get refocused on that tip of the spear, if I may ask?
Well, like I had mentioned earlier, our marketing group they are whiz at what they do. So they've constantly got campaigns going. We do webinars. Being able to track that and get it into the system quickly and out to reps is really important. And that's something that we are seeing, that the reps get these. Anything that comes to our website or
Right.
from these webinars or trade shows, they're in there quickly and the reps can start working them. So, you know, they're really great at that. And, you know, it's like any system. I think just like our system, you have to kind of take the end in mind that you're looking for and work backwards from it.
Yes.
And, you know, we wanted to have a system that had, it was very technology centric to other things that you can do. The fact that the partner channel like Wendt Partners is available, and unlike what we saw when we first brought Salesforce up, they went in and actually set up the system and built some reports. But then they were gone. So it's like, okay, what do you do now? What is, just like you said, what is this thing doing? And you're
how?
definitely afraid to touch it. So,
Right. because you can't administer that without having that expert admin, that
Right.
MacGyver at your side. Right.
Right. And those partners don't offer the services that you guys offer or stay with you. So, you really have to figure it out for the most part on your own. And, we had people that were in there really trying to figure out, okay, what do we do with this? And what do we do with that? And we have a certified Salesforce administrator. She's moving over to getting the same certifications, I think, within HubSpot. Of course, this time of year is a pretty busy time of year for us. So
right.
It's a
Everyone's like,
2023.
wait, can we change over before end of year? Right.
I don't know, Doug. I don't know if we'll get another acquisition at the end of this year or not.
Oh my, so many moving parts. And I have to say, you've done an incredible job keeping all of them in line. I know we're running up toward the clock here, so I just want to reiterate, if anybody has a question, we probably got time for 1 or 2 questions here. Go ahead and pop them into the Q&A. While we're waiting for other people to add questions, I'm going to throw one on the deck, which is, where do you see the future of sales going in the context of all this technology? And by the way, what's something that I know has kind of driven you a little crazy? You love the technology, but part of you is kind of like, I'd love to dig into that for just a moment. So I'm thinking about, I'm sorry, I didn't do a good lead on that. I'm thinking about the sales enablement discussion where you're like,
Okay.
I love this functionality, but.
Yeah, I love the functionality, but the dupes drive me crazy.
Duplicates drive you crazy.
I mean,
Yeah.
they drive us all crazy, I think.
Yes.
And because the foundation of different CRMs work off of different queues, we weren't expecting that domain was an email were going to be the drivers, because in Salesforce they weren't.
Right.
Yes,
So we see that so much, that people come from another system where it's duplicate city, and the only thing worse than too many duplicates is accidentally overwriting separate records and creating one. So it's like you end up with 2 extremes. Yeah.
Exactly.
You also, I'm sorry, finish your thought. I apologize.
Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
You also said something about sequences that I find fascinating.
Yes.
Like, all these automation tools are great, but.
Well, the sales reps build their own sequences.
Right.
And enroll in those sequences and manage those replies and opens. And, and that's the other thing you can see I can actually see it within my Outlook.
Right.
When somebody has opened an email that I sent, I love it. I absolutely love it. I have never had a CRM that would do that. So.
Without a third-party tool, by the way, this is all native functionality in HubSpot.
Exactly.
And I know one thing that you've been very good with your team on, which is automation is not a substitution for relationship building.
That's correct.
So put them in that sequence, but that sequence had better have some tasks for you to give them an old-fashioned phone call. Because last time I checked, the best way to sell something is to talk to someone about it and learn about their business and build a relationship. And I know that you and I both share that passion. We love the automation. We love the enablement, the technology. But at the end of the day, the reason it's called customer relationship management is because we're trying to build meaningful business relationships. And I've always appreciated how much you professionally hone in on that with your team.
Well, thank you, Doug. I mean, that's the name of the game. In our world, the platforms are pretty much functionality wise the same, but the difference is the service. And, that's what I have seen with HubSpot and you guys, which we didn't have before. So it's very refreshing.
Wow. Thank you, Melanie. It's been an honor having you join us for this hour. I know we're at 1:00 Eastern, so we're at wrap-up time. My thanks to everyone who attended today. We'll make sure you get the recording. We're also going to be releasing an ebook that we'll make sure that you receive, which is the B2B CEO's Guide to Migrating from Salesforce to HubSpot CRM in your enterprise. Melanie, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you all, Doug. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Bye-bye.